best thing an investor could do would be jump in the market right now.
If you could get a $55,000 pay rise, then that's $55,000 that you haven't got today. We are at record numbers of population growth. We're bringing 563,000 skilled workers into the country, but the reality is it's going to turbocharge that demand.
Welcome back to Brick to the Future. I'm Al Lewison here with Bozza Beresford.
Hey, Oz.
Got a really exciting topic to talk about today, which is driven off the back of an increase in inquiry to our business about the home guarantee scheme from the government.
Off the charts, isn't it?
Off the charts. And straight off the top, while it doesn't directly have an influence on investors in property, it does indirectly have a massive impact on what sort of results we think our investors will get, or investors will get in general, once it comes into the market and hits full force. So we thought really relevant to talk about it, and you're the resident expert, so it's a great one for you.
All right. So, indirectly doesn't help investors, and what we mean by that, you can't use this scheme to buy an investment property. So it comes back to the government's announcement at the last election. One of their mandates was to increase the likelihood of home ownership for first home buyers. We can debate whether or not this policy is a good one. Bottom line is, it's not doing anything to address the fundamental undersupply in the market. It's going to absolutely turbocharge demand. It will help first home buyers get into the market because they can effectively do so with a 5% deposit. The government is guaranteeing the other 15%, so they can get into the market without having to pay lenders' mortgage insurance, put that money towards their deposit and costs instead. So for those that are in a position to act, and to act quickly, it will be a game changer for them. But the reality is it's going to turbocharge that demand, often at affordable price points, and that's going to push the entry price up and property prices up as a result.
I think a really key point here, the government's not giving them 15%. The government's not chipping 15% in. What the government's saying is don't get lenders' mortgage insurance, borrow 95%, and we'll guarantee the difference between 80% borrowing and 95% borrowing.
Yep.
So when people are looking at buying a property, they've still got to factor in repayments on a loan at 95% of the property price, plus costs, I guess.
That's right.
And do we know numbers yet on how much impact that will have on a first home buyer? Like how much extra can they borrow by not needing to pay for that mortgage insurance?
Well, if they're typically on a purchase price of say $700,000, if your loan's around that $650 mark, for example, then your lender's mortgage insurance is going to be about $13,000.
Okay.
So it's a sizable, it's nearly 50% extra towards your deposit.
So you need to save 50% more to get in the market, is what we're saying.
Without the policy.
Yep. And you said it doesn't directly, which is investors can't use it, but it impacts the market. So what are the indirect benefits for an investor?
Yeah. So the probably a couple of important things on the policy itself before I answer that for you, Al. So
Sure, boss.
Thank you. So the policy itself was going to take effect from the 1st of January. It had some income caps on it. So I think it was 210,000 household income to qualify. Don't quote me on it. And there were price caps as well in different price caps in all of the different capital cities. What happened about 3 weeks ago was the announcement came out, said that they're bringing the policy forward to take effect from the 1st of October. The income cap has been abolished. So you could earn $1 million a year and still be able to buy a house as part of this scheme as a first home buyer. And thirdly, the price point caps have increased in every capital city in Australia. So, for example, in Melbourne, it used to be you could buy a house up to $800,000 in value under this scheme. That's increased to $950,000. In Sydney, even more drastic, $900,000 up to $1.5 million. So there's a dramatic expansion in the price points of properties that can qualify under this scheme. So understanding those moving factors or moving pieces, when an investor has a property in the marketplace and this demand is turbocharged at the affordable entry level to start with, but with the ability to drive up, it's only going to be pushing prices up from the bottom in what we call a bottom-up market, which is really consistent, sustainable growth. So for those investors that have property pre-October 1, they're going to do pretty well over the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think the low price points will start to push up. If you've got a property in that band, which we sort of recommend to people, be at or around the median for a capital city or a region area, those prices should benefit from that increase in benchmarking. Once properties start to transact at that price, valuations go up and you increase your equity that you can get a hold of.
Yep. So then obviously taking that equity, you'll be able to duplicate far more quickly and start to grow the portfolio and accumulate your asset base more quickly than what you'd be able to in a static market.
So, Boz, if I think of the flow-on effect in the different markets, what they're probably doing here is bringing who's currently a renter, bringing them forward into being owners. They'll move into their own home. Being devil's advocate, is that going to cause a glut of rental properties, or what do we think is going to happen in the market in that respect?
Great question. So from the numbers that I've heard that the government are looking at, they think that this is going to expand the number of first home buyers by about 70,000 in the first year. Okay. Now, that's 3/4 of a packed MCG on grand final day. Seems pretty big, right? In reality, however, we are at record numbers of population growth and specifically overseas migration in Australia right now. So going back pre-election, we were around 460,000 for the year. That got dialed backwards for the couple of months pre the election because we didn't want to have too much immigration pre-election. That wouldn't have been good for the political parties. As soon as the election was over, it's been dialed back up and we're now at a record number. So we've spoken a lot on this podcast around the ongoing demand for housing and why the government needs a commitment to skilled migration. If we think that 70,000 home buyers are going to benefit from this policy, yet in 1 year we're bringing 563,000 skilled workers into the country, there's always going to be a demand for housing and particularly rental.
Is that why it's so urgent? Because they need more and more rental properties to fuel or to cover housing for this immigration, and they need to move it out of rentals to move into properties to allow that to happen. Is that why they're driving this policy change so quickly and so hard?
I think that's probably a flow-on effect. They get some brownie points in that they've put out a policy there that at face value helps first home buyers. How effective it'll be long term, that's to be determined. But fundamentally, it is ticking that box and it is freeing up housing supply. So when we have a rental crisis, being able to get those that don't have the ability to buy their first home now because the deposit is the hardest part to come up with, if they can halve that problem or reduce that problem dramatically through this policy, it does free up more housing supply without having to build it.
And I heard someone say to me, look, I was going to buy an investment property, but that would be my first home and I can't use the grant for it or the LMI government guarantee for it. Maybe I'll just wait and buy my own home. I advised, I think that was the best idea, but what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. So where we see people make mistakes over over 20 years is where they start to muddy the waters between owner occupying and investing. And when they start to sacrifice and make concessions around, I'll live here so that I can take advantage of a policy. If they hate living in that area and it's not convenient for work or their friends or their family, it's not going to be sustainable long term and the process starts to unravel. We're seeing more and more often within people's psyche the term rent vesting becoming part of the vernacular. I think everyone started to understand that buying the right kind of property in the right kind of area with a growth focus and renting where you want to live is going to be a far more successful, enjoyable and valuable outcome long term as well.
Yeah, I think the other thing people need to factor into that is when they're owning an investment property, they've got other people helping them make their repayments.
Completely.
They've got the ATO helping with tax deductions, they've got the renter helping and they're paying the top up amount. If it's their own property, it's a very different proposition. You're paying 100% of the repayments. So they can't look at it like for like because one is an investment and one is where you're going to live. And like you've just said, make some sacrifices around where you live because you're in a property you can afford or because there was a government scheme to get you there. So I think there's a bit that comes into it. And I think people would be naive if they jumped straight in the market, backed away from the market and thought, I'm going to sit and wait till I can save some more deposit or buy my own place.
What I'd encourage people to kind of come back to is, what are the fundamentals? You want to be holding as much asset value as possible for as little money out of your own pocket as possible. That's really what we're talking about here. And if you could get a $55,000 pay rise in the form of tax benefits and rental income, then that's $55,000 that you haven't got today or that you haven't got if you're owning your own home to go towards the mortgage repayments as a big impact on lifestyle while still having exposure to the market.
And look, the feedback I gave the person who asked me, I said, we see the market growing from October. The things you talked about before about a bottom-up market driven by people getting into the entry point in the market and driving it up from, in Melbourne, 800 to 950 because that's where the government scheme's helping them. The best thing an investor could do would be jump in the market right now, ride some growth, and then use that equity you've made to get in and go again. because, again, when you're buying investment properties for investing and it's about creating a lifestyle for yourself, it's a prime opportunity right now to buy an investment property.
Absolutely. And I think understanding that, there are 4 fundamentals. We talk about them a lot: supply, demand, affordability, and sentiment. If you think about those 4 fundamentals quickly, nothing's been done about the supply. So that's going to stay constrained and undersupplied. We know that we're not creating enough houses for the population. The demand is going to be turbocharged through this policy, as we've spoken about already. And the majority of that demand is going to be at the affordable end of the market. That leaves sentiment. Now, just think about, we've seen it time and time again in market cycles, when sentiment is low and people are like, oh, don't know if now is the right time to be investing. I'll wait to see the market perform and then I might jump in. That typical sitting on the fence behavior. Sentiment shifts very, very quickly. And when there's an influx of demand due to government policy or just sentiment in the market, and prices move, you want to be able to have secured the property and take advantage of that initial price movement. The other thing that you want to be doing, right, is riding that sentiment wave and taking the competition out of it. And that's really the key part, is understanding that sentiment moves quickly, and you might be thinking, oh, well, I'll wait and see what happens on the 1st of October. I'll get in early next year. The reality is you're going to be paying a lot more to do so.
I don't think you need a crystal ball to see that there's going to be some market growth, and the stimulus is there to make that happen.
You're exactly right. We saw that most recently in COVID with home builder. When there was government stimulus around construction, that increased confidence. All right, the government are taking positive steps. Property market's starting to move. This many sales are happening, and we've seen dramatic growth in nearly every market in Australia since then.
Boz, thanks for that overview. Clearly some big things happening in the market. Taking your point there, supply will not change, demand will increase, affordability increasing, and sentiment, the main one for me with these changes, market sentiment will drive some growth in the market. Great time to be a property investor. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Boz.
See you next time.